Abu Simbel. Hi everyone, welcome back into my channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing and give this video a thumbs up. In today's video we are going to learn Abu Simbel, a UNESCO World Heritage Site known as the Nubian Monuments, which run from Abu Simbel downriver to Philae. Abu Simbel are two massive rock-cut temples in the village of Abu Simbel near the border with Sudan. They are situated on the western bank of Lake Nasser, about 230 kilometers (140 miles) southwest of Aswan, about 300 kilometers (190 miles) by road. The complex is part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site known as the Nubian Monuments, which run from Abu Simbel downriver to Philae, near Aswan, and include Amada, Wadi es-Sebua, and other Nubian sites. The twin temples were originally carved out of the mountainside in the 13th century before Christ, during the 19th dynasty reign of the Pharaoh Ramesses II. They serve as a lasting monument to the King Ramesses II. His wife Nefertari and children can be seen in smaller figures by his feet, considered to be of lesser importance and were not given the same position of scale. This commemorates his victory at the Battle of Kadesh. Took place between the forces of the New Kingdom of Egypt under Ramesses II and the Hittite Empire under Muwatalli II at the city of Kadesh on the Orontes River, just upstream of Lake Homs near the modern Lebanon-Syria border. The battle is generally dated to 1274 BC from the Egyptian chronology, and is the earliest pitched battle in recorded history for which details of tactics and formations are known. During the reign of Ramesses II embarked on an extensive building program throughout Egypt and Nubia, which Egypt controlled. Nubia was very important to the Egyptians because it was a source of gold and many other precious trade goods. He, therefore, built several grand temples there in order to impress upon the Nubians Egypt's might and Egyptianize the people of Nubia. The most prominent temples are the rock-cut temples near the modern village of Abu Simbel. At the Second Nile Cataract, the border between Lower Nubia and Upper Nubia, there are two temples, the Great Temple, dedicated to Ramesses II himself, and the Small Temple, dedicated to his chief wife Queen Nefertari. Also known as Nefertari Meritmut, was an Egyptian queen and the first of the great royal wives, or principal wives, of Ramesses the Great. Nefertari means beautiful companion and Meritmut means beloved of the goddess Mut. She is one of the best-known Egyptian queens, among such women as Cleopatra, Nefertiti, and Hatshepsut, and one of the most prominent not known or thought to have reigned in her own right. She was highly educated and able to both read and write hieroglyphs, a very rare skill at the time. She used these skills in her diplomatic work, corresponding with other prominent royals of the time. Her lavishly decorated tomb is one of the largest and most spectacular in the Valley of the Queens. Ramesses also constructed a temple for her at Abu Simbel next to his colossal monument. Construction of the temple complex started in approximately 1264 BC and lasted for about 20 years, until 1244 BC. It was known as the Temple of Ramesses, beloved by Amun. The temples fell into disuse and eventually became covered by sand. By the 6th century BC, the sand already covered the statues of the main temple up to their knees. The temple was forgotten until 1813, when Swiss researcher Johann Ludwig Burckhardt found the top frieze of the main temple. In architecture, the frieze is the wide central section part of an entablature and may be plain in the Ionic or Doric order or decorated with bas-reliefs. Paterae are also usually used to decorate friezes. In 1959, an international donations campaign to save the monuments of Nubia began. The southernmost relics of this ancient human civilization were under threat from the rising waters of the Nile that were about to result from the construction of the Aswan High Dam. The Aswan High Dam is the world's largest embankment dam, which was built across the Nile in Aswan, Egypt. between 1960 and 1970. The salvage of the Abu Simbel temples began in 1964 by a multinational team of archaeologists, engineers and skilled heavy equipment operators working together under the UNESCO banner. It cost some $40 million at the time, equal to $300 million in 2017 dollars. Between 1964 and 1968, the entire site was carefully cut into large blocks, up to 30 tons, averaging 20 tons, dismantled, lifted and reassembled in a new location 65 meters higher and 200 meters back from the river, in one of the greatest challenges of archaeological engineering in history. Some structures were even saved from under the waters of Lake Nasser. Today, a few hundred tourists visit the temples daily. Many visitors also arrive by plane at an airfield that was specially constructed for the temple complex, or by road from Aswan, the nearest city. The Great Temple at Abu Simbel, which took about 20 years to build, was completed around year 24 of the reign of Ramses the Great, which corresponds to 1265 BC. It was dedicated to the gods Amun, Ra-Horakhti, and Ptah, as well as to the deified Ramses himself. It is generally considered the grandest and most beautiful of the temples commissioned during the reign of Ramses II, and one of the most beautiful in Egypt. The single entrance is flanked by 4 colossal, 20 meters, 66 feet, statues, each representing Ramses II seated on a throne and wearing the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. The facade behind the colossi is 33 meters, 108 feet, high and 38 meters, 125 feet, wide. It carries a frieze depicting 22 baboons worshipping the rising sun with upraised arms and a stele recording the marriage of Ramses to a daughter of King Hattusili III, which sealed the peace between Egypt and the Hittites, an Anatolian people who played an important role in establishing first a kingdom in Kusara before 1750 BC, then the Kanesh or Nesha kingdom, circa 1750 to 1650 BC, and next an empire centered on Hattusa in north-central Anatolia around 1650 BC. This empire reached its height during the mid-14th century BC under Suppiluliuma I, when it encompassed an area that included most of Anatolia as well as parts of the northern Levant and upper Mesopotamia. The inner part of the temple has the same triangular layout that most ancient Egyptian temples follow, with rooms decreasing in size from the entrance to the sanctuary. The temple is complex in structure and quite unusual because of its many side chambers. The hypostyle hall, sometimes also called the pronaos, is 18 meters, 59 feet, long and 16.7 meters, 55 feet, wide and is supported by 8 huge Osirid pillars depicting the deified Ramses linked to the god Osiris. God Osiris is the god of fertility, agriculture, the afterlife, the dead, resurrection, life, and vegetation in ancient Egyptian religion. He was classically depicted as a green-skinned deity with a pharaoh's beard, partially mummy-wrapped at the legs, wearing a distinctive Atef crown, and holding a symbolic crook and flail. The colossal statues along the left-hand wall bear the white crown of Upper Egypt, while those on the opposite side are wearing the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, Skend. The bas-reliefs on the walls of the pronaos depict battle scenes in the military campaigns that Ramses waged. Much of the sculpture is given to the Battle of Kadesh, on the Orontes River in present-day Syria, in which the Egyptian king fought against the Hittites. The most famous relief shows the king on his chariot shooting arrows against his fleeing enemies, who are being taken prisoner. Other scenes show Egyptian victories in Libya and Nubia. From the hypostyle hall, one enters the second pillared hall, which has 4 pillars decorated with beautiful scenes of offerings to the gods. There are depictions of Ramses and Nefertari with the sacred boats of Amun and Ra-Horakhti. This hall gives access to a transverse vestibule, in the middle of which is the entrance to the sanctuary. The solar alignment believed that the axis of the temple was positioned by the ancient Egyptian architects in such a way that on October 22 and February 22, The rays of the sun would penetrate the sanctuary and illuminate the sculptures on the back wall, except for the statue of Ptah, a god connected with the realm of the dead, who always remained in the dark. People gather at Abu Simbel on these days to witness. The Temple of Hathor and Nefertari, also known as the Small Temple, was built about 100 meters, 330 feet, northeast of the Temple of Ramses II and was dedicated to the goddess Hathor and Ramses II's chief consort, Nefertari. This was in fact the second time in ancient Egyptian history that a temple was dedicated to a queen. The first time, Akhenaten dedicated a temple to his great royal wife, Nefertiti. The rock-cut facade is decorated with two groups of colossi that are separated by the large gateway. The statues, slightly more than 10 meters, 33 feet, high, are of the king and his queen. On either side of the portal are two statues of the king, wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt, South Colossus, and the double crown, North Colossus. These are flanked by statues of the queen. Egyptian art where the statues of the king and his consort has equal size. Traditionally, the statues of the queens stood next to those of the pharaoh but were never taller than his knees. Ramses went to Abu Simbel with his wife in the 24th year of his reign. As the great temple of the king, there are small statues of princes and princesses next to their parents. In this case they are positioned symmetrically. On the south side, at left as one faces the gateway, are, from left to right, Princes Muryadim and Mur-Ir, Princesses Meridaman and Henataui, and Princes Paraherwanim and Amun-Herkapsh, while on the north side the same figures are in reverse order. The plan of the small temple is a simplified version of that of the Great Temple. In the larger temple dedicated to the king, the hypostyle hall in the smaller temple is supported by 6 pillars. In this case, however, they are not Osiris pillars depicting the king, but are decorated with scenes with the queen playing the sistrum, an instrument sacred to the goddess Hathor, together with the gods Horus, Khnum, Khonsu, and Thoth, and the goddesses Hathor, Isis, Mut, Mut of Ashur, Satis and Taweret. In one scene Ramses is presenting flowers or burning incense. The capitals of the pillars bear the face of the goddess Hathor. This type of column is known as Hathoric. The bas-reliefs in the pillared hall illustrate the deification of the king, the destruction of his enemies in the north and south. In these scenes the king is accompanied by his wife, and the queen making offerings to the goddesses Hathor and Mut. The rock-cut sanctuary and the two side chambers are connected to the transverse vestibule and are aligned with the axis of the temple. The bas-reliefs on the side walls of the small sanctuary represent scenes of offerings to various gods made either by the pharaoh or the queen. On the back wall, which lies to the west along the axis of the temple, there is a niche in which Hathor, as a divine cow, seems to be coming out of the mountain. The goddess is depicted as the mistress of the temple dedicated to her and to Queen Nefertari, who was intimately linked to the goddess.